everyone, I'm your host, Christina Pagan, and today is Wednesday, February 18th, and of course you're watching Open, the only live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We want you to stay connected to us through social media and the web. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at BronxNet TV, and on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. A Nation Wholly Free, the elimination of the national debt in the age of Jackson, focuses on the last time, in fact, the only time in U.S. history when America had paid its debt. Here to tell us more about this historical moment from his book is historian, professor, and writer, Mr. Carl Lane. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me on.
No problem. So can you tell us, first of all, what made you want to research and do a book like this?
Well, the main reason was that when I started out, the debt was about 6 or 7 trillion.
Wow.
Now, of course, it's beyond beyond 18 trillion. Mm-hmm. And I knew that we had eliminated the debt in 1835, the debt that had accumulated from the War for Independence, mm-hmm. from the Louisiana Purchase, and from the War of 1812. Altogether, that added up to $127 million.
And in that time, that was a lot of money.
Exactly. And, 18 trillion doesn't really compare to that in any significant way. But to the post-1812 generation, 127 million appeared to be a humongous debt.
Right.
And that, how would it ever be paid off? Mm-hmm. And the book focuses on how that was done, because this moment of freedom from debt has largely been forgotten. It's not mentioned in most college textbooks,
right.
Not even a sentence.
I'd never heard of it before. I was thoroughly surprised when I read that.
Okay, and that's the reason why I wrote the book, because I think it needs to be remembered. Mm-hmm. And if we can remember it and know that we did the debt in one time, well, we can do it again. And I hope that the book will inspire confidence mm-hmm. that 18 trillion or whatever, we can handle it because we've done it before and we can do it again.
So it also says in the synopsis that this particular moment led to the two-party system that we have now. How did that happen?
That happened because after the War of 1812, the Federalist Party disappeared, mm-hmm. and we had one-party government for the next decade.
Okay.
But what happened was that when John Quincy Adams was elected by the House of Representatives, mm-hmm. in 1825, he showed no great interest in eliminating the debt.
Okay.
President Monroe, before Adams, in his last State of the Union message, said that if everything went without an unforeseen emergency, mm-hmm. the debt would be eliminated on January 1, 1835. Now, he retired. Adams came in mm-hmm. and espoused a program of building canals, building highways, creating a national university, creating an astronomical institute. All of these things, of course, entailed money.
Right.
And so he alienated elements of the Jeffersonian Party, mm-hmm. and they wound up in opposition to him. And they ultimately matured into the Whig Party.
Into the Whigs and the Federalists.
I'm sorry, the Democratic Party. I said that backwards.
The Whigs were before, and then, yes, okay. So then, you said that we did this before we could do it again. How do you think that it's $17 trillion is significantly more than 127 million. So what does that mean for us now? How do you think we can tackle that?
Well, during the Jackson era, they used retrenchment mm-hmm. as the means.
What does that mean?
Cutting back on expenditures. Mm-hmm. And they could do that because the period was one of extraordinary prosperity. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, we are trying to recover from the Great Recession,
right.
And we're getting there. Mm-hmm. And part of the answer to your question is to maintain a strong and growing economy. Now we're getting there. In the last quarter, the economic growth was at 4.5%. That is a healthy rate of growth. That condition is a necessary circumstance in order to address the current debt problem. But I think there's more to it. The partisanship that emerged partly over the debt issue in the Jackson era created such bitterness and vilification and lying by politicians in the Congress that if you read some of the text here, it'll sound as if it's 2015 because the same kind of bitterness characterizes the situation today. And I don't think that the $18 trillion debt can really be addressed until Republicans and Democrats actually sit down and honestly deal with the issue. One side says no taxes, you know, and the other says, well, we're not going to cut anything.
Right.
And there's got to be...
That's not much compromise.
That's right. But at some point, both sides will have to compromise because if they don't, we've got a major problem on our hands.
Absolutely. How did they manage to do that back in the Jackson era? How did they manage to find that compromise? Well,
because the Federalist Party had disappeared, there was no contention over creating legislation that was designed to meet President Monroe's schedule of January 1, 1835. In fact, the vote on the Redemption Act of 1817 did not even entail a roll call vote. It was just a viva voce, and the law was passed. And Jackson lived, when he became president, just implemented the law religiously and avoided unnecessary expenditures. The problem emerged not over the elimination of the debt, though, but what to do with the surplus after the debt was eliminated. And that created all kinds of problems. There was no serious anticipation of what to do with the surplus revenue. Some politicians wanted to spend it on defense. Others wanted to choke off the surplus by eliminating the tariff. Others wanted to distribute the money to the states. And in the end, that was what the Congress did. So without even, I'm sorry, without even 1 month of debate on the distribution matter, Congress voted to disperse all of the federal revenues that were surplus to the states, ostensibly as a loan, but everybody knew that it was really simply a federal handout to the states.
So where can we find your book as we're wrapping up?
Well, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, at Walmart, and through the publisher, which is West Home Publishing, based in Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Great. So Amazon, all our normal book sellers. And is it also digital? Do we have a digital version?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very, very much.
We have to take a short break, but we'll